Femi married Kelvin Adebayo, a successful engineer, knowing he had a 3-year-old son named Daniel from his previous marriage. Daniel's birth mother had passed away shortly after childbirth, leaving a void that Femi eagerly sought to fill, perhaps too eagerly. From the moment Femi moved into their home in Victoria Island, she devoted herself entirely to Daniel's care. Her intention was pure, to ensure Daniel never felt the absence of maternal love. However, her methods would prove problematic. "I will be the perfect mother," Femi had declared to Kelvin on their wedding day. "Daniel will never feel like he's missing anything in life." But perfection, as Femi would learn, wasn't about erasing all boundaries. It wasn't about becoming so close that the lines between parent and child became blurred. Yet, this was exactly what began to happen. Femi created an environment where Daniel's every wish became her command. She dismissed house helps who tried to discipline him, fought with teachers who attempted to correct his behavior, and shielded him from any form of criticism. Their household staff learned quickly that crossing Daniel meant crossing Femi, and that was a line no one dared to cross. Madam, their elderly housekeeper, Mama Joy, had warned one day, "The boy needs guidance, not just love." But Femi had dismissed her concerns with a wave of her hand. "You people don't understand modern parenting," she would say. "Children need love, not harsh words. Daniel always complains that the maids pinch him and beat him up whenever they are bathing him." Daniel insisted only to bath with his stepmother, which Femi easily agreed to, and sacked all the maids Daniel complained about. Before we continue our story, please share, like and subscribe to our channel if you have not done so. Kelvin, who spent much of his time traveling across Nigeria for work projects, noticed the troubling patterns during his time at home. He observed how Daniel had become completely dependent on Femi's presence, how the boy struggled to respect authority figures, and how his behavior became increasingly problematic. "Femi," Kelvin would say during their rare moments alone, "we need to talk about Daniel's upbringing." But Femi would always defend her approach. "He's just a child, Kelvin. He needs protection and love. The world is harsh enough as it is." When Daniel was 7, their grandmother, Mama Adebayo, visited from Ibadan. The elderly woman's eyes missed nothing, and her tongue held no prisoners. She observed the unusual closeness between stepmother and stepson with growing concern. "Femi, my daughter," Mama Adebayo said one evening, her voice heavy with worry, "there must be boundaries in every relationship, even between mother and child. What you're doing isn't right. You can't continue to bath with him at this age," Mama Adebayo said. But Femi, convinced of her modern parenting methods, dismissed the old woman's wisdom as outdated thinking. "Mama, times have changed. Children today need more emotional support." One day Femi was bathing with Daniel, and Daniel asked her a question that shocked her beyond her bone marrow. "Mom, what are the 2 things on your chest?" Femi thought for a while and replied, "They're 2 oranges. Can I touch and play with your 2 oranges, Mom?" Daniel asked, but Femi declined, saying it was meant for his father alone. As Daniel grew older, the consequences of Femi's parenting style became increasingly apparent. At school, he became known as the boy who couldn't be disciplined. Teachers dreaded having him in their classes, knowing that any attempt to correct his behavior would result in confrontation with his stepmother. By age 13, Daniel had been through 5 different schools in Lagos. Each time, the pattern was the same. He would misbehave, teachers would attempt to discipline him, and Femi would arrive like a storm, threatening lawsuits and demanding apologies. His academics suffered. Despite being naturally intelligent, Daniel couldn't focus in class. He spent more time disrupting lessons than learning. His homework remained undone, his assignments incomplete. But in Femi's eyes, it was always the teacher's fault, never Daniel's. The other parents in their social circle began to distance themselves. Playdates became rare, birthday party invitations dwindled. Daniel's world increasingly revolved around Femi, and Femi's around Daniel. Kelvin watched helplessly as his son transformed from a bright, promising child into a troubled teenager. His work kept him away from home more often than he liked, but during his time at home, he tried to institute some discipline. "He needs structure," Femi, Kelvin would argue. We're not doing him any favors by letting him run wild. But Femi would counter, you're barely here, Kelvin. You don't understand what Daniel needs. I'm with him every day. I know what's best for him. The situation reached its breaking point when Daniel turned 15. Years of inappropriate boundaries and excessive coddling had created a confused young man who struggled to understand normal relationships. That fateful Saturday afternoon, when Daniel confessed his inappropriate feelings for Femi, it was as if a bomb had exploded in their carefully constructed world.
Mom, I want to tell you something that has bothered me for long, Daniel said. Femi without any suspicion asked him to go on. Mom, I love you so much, Daniel said. Of course you will love me, I'm your stepmother, Femi said. No, it's hot, that king of love. I love you, Mom, and I want you to be my girlfriend. Femi, for the first time, saw the full consequences of her actions. The walls of denial she had built around herself came crashing down.
She fled the house that night, unable to face what her misguided love had created. She called Kelvin, who immediately flew back from his project in Port Harcourt. When he arrived home, he found his wife sleeping in their car, too ashamed to enter the house. The following days were filled with difficult conversations and painful realizations. They arranged for Daniel to see a child psychologist, who helped them understand how years of boundary-less parenting had affected his development. What we're seeing here, the psychologist explained, is the result of confusion between different types of love. Daniel never learned appropriate boundaries because they were never established.
The road to recovery was long and challenging. Kelvin took a sabbatical from work to be more present at home. They enrolled Daniel in a new school, this time with proper support systems in place. Femi began attending parenting classes and family therapy sessions. The most difficult part was rebuilding appropriate boundaries. Daniel initially resisted the changes, having grown accustomed to his unlimited access to Femi's attention and affection. But gradually, with professional help and consistent guidance, he began to understand the importance of proper family dynamics.
For Femi, the journey was equally challenging. She had to confront her own issues, her desperate need to be the perfect mother, her inability to set healthy boundaries, and her misunderstanding of what true parental love meant. I thought love meant never saying no, she confessed during one therapy session. I thought if I could protect him from every hardship, every disappointment, I would be giving him the perfect childhood. Instead, I failed him completely. But the therapist helped her understand that she hadn't failed, she had simply lost her way. Love without boundaries isn't love, the therapist explained. It's indulgence. An indulgence, no matter how well-intentioned, can harm those we care about most.
As months passed, their family began to heal. Daniel's behavior at school improved gradually. He began making real friends his own age. His academics slowly recovered as he learned to respect his teachers and take responsibility for his actions.
Femi learned to step back, to allow Daniel to face age-appropriate challenges and consequences. She discovered that true maternal love meant preparing a child for the real world, not shielding them from it entirely. Kelvin, too, learned valuable lessons about the importance of being present and involved in his son's life. He reorganized his work schedule to spend more time at home, understanding that his physical presence was crucial for his son's development. 3 years later, Daniel prepared to leave for university. He had been accepted to study engineering at the University of Lagos, following in his father's footsteps. The day before he left, he sat down with Femi. "I understand now," he said, his voice carrying the maturity that had been missing before. "You loved me so much that you forgot to teach me how to love properly. But I'm grateful that we all learned from our mistakes." Femi, with tears in her eyes, hugged him briefly, appropriately, and said, "We all need boundaries to grow, my son. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand that."
Today, Daniel is a successful engineer like his father. He's married with 2 children of his own, and he often speaks about the lessons he learned from his teenage years. Femi has become an advocate for proper parenting, sharing her story with other stepparents who might be struggling to find the right balance.
Love is not about erasing boundaries, she often says in her parenting workshops. It's about creating safe spaces within proper boundaries where children can grow into healthy, well-adjusted adults. And so, my dear viewers, this story reminds us that love, no matter how well-intentioned, must be guided by wisdom and understanding. Boundaries aren't walls that keep people apart. They're the foundations upon which healthy relationships are built. This is African Tales, signing off. Remember to like, subscribe, and share if you found this story meaningful. Until next time, stay blessed.